The joy that you find here you borrow. You cannot keep it long, it seems. But gigolo and gigolette still sing a song and dance along the boulevard of broken dreams.
Everyone who lived through the Great Depression has a story to tell. Stay with us as ordinary people recall extraordinary times in Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir, that's my baby. No.
The 1920s, the Roaring Twenties. The economy boomed. Everyone was buying stock. Everybody had a hot tip. The only direction was up. Until October 1929, when the roaring stopped.
I can remember very well standing in this store, and this man and woman came in, and he was crying. He says, "Mr. Bigley," he says, "I just lost everything." And Mr. Bigley said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I just lost everything. There was just a stock market crash."
In Altoona, Pennsylvania, the news reports were smaller, not so ominous. The business community rallied round. But for all that local optimism, the world had been fundamentally changed.
My father was down to, he had a pretty good hold on the railroad. Oh, he hired in 1906, and this is 1933, so you know how much service he had. Well, he was down to a couple of days a week.
My dad had, at that time, had 40 years service. He was able to hang on to a job for a short time until they closed the shops down completely.
Insurance companies and banks failed right and left. I know we had one of our companies fail, and my father and I replaced all the policies at our expense and paid the few outstanding claims, which was a little difficult at that time.
We lost our baby. The week that I lost my baby, I was cut. I took 2 cuts in wages, down to $1 a day.
Their pay, what they paid you when I started was 14 cents an hour. I worked 11 hours a day, and after working there for a month, I went down to the office for a raise, and they gave me a raise, but it amounted to 1 penny. I got a penny raise.
And the principal freight of the Pennsylvania Railroad was coal. So every time the miners went out on strike, the railroad shut down. And when the railroad shut down, so did Altoona.
Once I built a railroad, I made it run.
Employment on the Pennsylvania Railroad dropped from more than 15,000 to less than 3,000. Relief rolls climbed, and one of the best company towns in America followed the spiral downward.
Can you spare a dime?
And that was one of the hardest things that the people had to take, was losing their homes.
My boss come to me one day and he said, I seen him talking to this man. And he said, come back after the man left, he come to me, he said, Dad, did you see me, that man there? I said, yes, I did. He said, he offered for me to give your job to him because you're not married and don't have no family. No, or at that time. He said he'd take his job for $1 a day. That's just how hard up men were. They would do anything for $1.
They'd take any kind of employment they could get at any price. There was no worrying about minimum wage or anything of that kind. Any job that produced money, they took, and we're grateful to get it.
Might have hit the rich a little bit harder than it did the people that had always worked for a living, because they had to give up a lot more than what we gave up. And they talk about all these people up in New York jumping out of skyscrapers at the time of the big crash.
And we survived. We were never hungry the whole time that there was a depression.
I do recall sentiments of how the Depression seemingly benefited us at one point, us meaning blacks. because of the food subsidy, and I guess there were other subsidy programs.
The government gave out commodities, and I can remember well, they gave white steak fish, white potatoes, eggs, and canned beef.
For a while, people could relax because they knew that they would have ample food each week to feed their families, something that just didn't exist prior to the New Deal programs.
That the only thing we have to fear is
1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the urbane New York patrician, was elected to lead the unemployed, the hungry, and the homeless to a new prosperity.
Oh, that was when that man was elected. And of course the business community didn't like him very well because he had a lot of brand new policies that, everybody was sure wouldn't work, but did.
Then things started, he started he started the welfare and the NRA and a few other things. And the results was people was able to go get some food, at least some food. And then he started loans to people who wanted to recoup their homes.
In Altoona, as elsewhere, there may not have been much work or money, but there was still plenty. Plenty of pride, independence, self-reliance.
Mother made pies and cakes and things like that and had me go out and sell them until Dad found it out, and that was the end of that. He didn't believe in that. You got along on what you made and what you worked for.
But I never had to ask any welfare, and to this day I've never had to ask for a pound of rice or a pound of beans or nothing. And I've been very fortunate, and I can knock on wood on that.
People were proud of the fact that they were able to sustain themselves. My dad, $7 a week, that was money that he made, he earned, he could handle at living, and the family and mom and everything was $7. He was self-sufficient. He didn't need welfare. Welfare was the farthest thing from his mind.
I don't think it was quite as bad as it's been painted in the meantime, really. We survived. Everybody was in the same boat. There wasn't any, there really wasn't much to do about it.
In my dad's relating information about the Depression, there always comes that tinge of pride, I think, that you know, he had gotten through that and was able to sustain a family and get through that particular period of time. And as with any disaster, man-made or natural, there's a certain camaraderie, I guess, or a feeling that you have accomplished something by going through a period of time like that.
Well, we're better off financially, I think, but whether we're better people, I'm not so sure.
Eventually, the Depression ended, but among the people of Altoona, Pennsylvania, the old memories and fears remain alive.
I think what a lot of people don't realize that this could happen again.
Well, we have, I guess, become so accustomed to government stepping in and saving our hides that I think if it happened again, we'd run into a severe depression and a severe inflation. Uncle Sammy can print money and nobody else can, and that's the last resort. And if we came to the last resort, we'd do it.
Law enforcement. I think a country would just go almost into anarchy. I mean, if it be what's yours is mine, and I'm going to have yours if it's going to keep me going.
On the good ship, lollipop is sweet trip to a candy shop where guns on.
Looking back, there was a lot of, I wouldn't Well, you just forget about what it was like back in those days. I mean, we're talking about it now, why it's coming back again, but we'd forgotten all about that there. People my age, we were young back then, and we just took it in stride now. Our parents probably, it was more of a trauma to them than it was to us.
So, you know, those are just little things that you think about now and then. You look back and you think you're trying to survive. You're trying to keep your head above the water, and little things happen, but it all came out in the wash, so to speak. I think I'm 83 now, and I'm sort of pleased with the way things have gone during my life. I have two lovely children.
You done us wrong. We never see a headline about a bread line today. And when we see the landlord, we can look that guy right in the eye. We're in the money.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.